So we are live. We are live. Can you guys hear me good?
Yep, we can hear you.
Awesome. So thank you for joining us, everyone. This live is really kind of a home team emergency live in a good way because there's been so much buzz, positive signal coming out of Rwanda, and we really wanted to digest what is Rwanda telling startups, right? Compared to the big four on the continent, Rwanda, it's up until now hasn't made too much noise in the startup scene, but it's kind of like that garden that has the right soil needed for plants to flourish and grow. That's what Rwanda is turning into. And we've all spent some time in Rwanda lately, the past couple of weeks. Zekarias has been at the Inclusive Fintech Forum, and he's still in Rwanda right now. He's actually joining us from there. Manahat and I have been in Rwanda over the past 2 weeks. So we're going to really break down what Rwanda is telling the world and specifically startups. And so we're going to start with maybe, Zach, if you want to recap some of the news coming out of the IFF and some high points and some takeaways for startups to focus on.
Absolutely. Rwanda has always been known as a city, and Kigali has been a city of proof of concept. So any innovative ideas have been tested here in the city. So it has been a good regulatory and policy making space to make that happen. And also has been Africa's capital of ease of doing business, as you've seen it yourself when you're here, and also as our delegates are going to see when they join us in November. So everything is in one shop, Swift, and public service is just superb. Now, the startup ecosystem is added to this. So over the last 3 days, I'm here attending and speaking at the Inclusive Fintech Forum, which is a partnership between JFTN and also the Bank of Rwanda and then Rwanda Development Board. It has been fantastic. So many announcements, which we'll cover later on. Thousands of people have come here. And the Rwandan government has taken the opportunity to make several innovative announcements and exciting, especially for the startup and the ecosystem space. And I will touch each one by one.
Awesome. Actually, I forgot a very important question to the both of you. Maybe we'll start off with Manahat. A little bit of a hot take, and we apologize in advance if this stokes some controversy. But Manahat, you had Rwandan tea, you've had Rwandan coffee, and if you've had Ethiopian coffee, which one is better? Let's start there real quick, just to get the juices flowing real quick. Kind of a divert. You can plead the fifth if you want. You can plead the fifth.
I'd rather plead the fifth because honestly, I loved Rwanda, and I'm just gonna say I'm gonna plead the fifth.
You're gonna plead the fifth. All right. How about you, Zach? Let me switch the question for you. You've had Kenyan tea, yeah. You've had Rwandan tea. Which one is better?
If I can qualify, I also been drinking British tea and Ethiopian tea, right? I can compare the four. I have always been drinking my tea with a spice and milk. And I don't know if you tasted it, but there is a tea called African tea here in Rwanda. Exactly the same in Kenya. So out of all the teas I've drank, the African tea that I had here in Kigali and Nairobi is my favorite.
So those two are your favorite. Okay, you heard it here first. Zekarias prefers Rwandan and Nairobi tea, so that's cool. So on that thread, big news coming out of Kenya and Rwanda, right? Fintech passporting it's a new. I mean, it's an innovative policy. It happened between Rwanda and Ghana, right? So if you have a license in Rwanda or Ghana, it applies to both countries, and now Kenya, right? So could you touch on that announcement? Zach, and we'll come to you, Manahat, as well, just to talk about what that really means for the startup ecosystem. And for those of you who've attended Ghana and Kenya for the past few years, we chose Rwanda on purpose. Well, Zach did it. So maybe touch on that too, because we've had a good audience from both countries. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you very much. So, we heard about, several economic regions, for example, the EU. So one company registered in any EU economic region has automatic access to the entire market. Africa, as big as it is, even with the Continental Free Trade Agreement being a 1.4 billion large market, is still protracted. A company, especially a startup that has limited resources, that registered in one country has to replicate the same process in 54 countries. Not sustainable. The standards are different, and it's been really making it difficult, especially for homegrown African businesses. It has been easier for global companies to use their financial muscle and register across 54 countries. Rwanda is actually resetting that. So last year, Rwanda made what we call it a fintech license passporting agreement with Ghana. What that means is that any fintech that has been registered in Ghana or Rwanda doesn't need to replicate the same horrendous process and due diligence in another country. So basically, that opens a lot of door for African fintechs, even their African expansion strategy. When they select Ghana or Rwanda, they know that they automatically get close to 75 million people by registering one country, and then they replicate it. That reduces the cost of due diligence, registration cost. The startups can easily access and expand to African countries. And this year, just this week, Rwanda replicated with Kenya. So what that means is that automatically Rwanda is giving any startup that is registering here in Kigali with its already existing ease of doing business culture and capability, now can access 100 million people consumers between the three countries, Ghana, Kenya, and Rwanda. So Rwanda has positioned itself as not only as ease of doing business, but also an African entry point for global fintechs and African fintechs, so that any fintech that registered in Rwanda automatically gets its license in Kenya and also in Ghana. So we're going to see a lot of fintechs using this functionality and registering Rwanda. Rwanda is going to be a capital city of global and Pan-African fintechs and expand across the continent. So that is so huge.
Yeah. And, Manahat and I, we had a lot of meetings with different stakeholders, whether it be government level or private sector, and everyone's like this, right? And we were just there 2 weeks ago, and, we heard about fintech passporting coming to the East African market, right? We heard about these things in conversations, and it was repeated in every single meeting across every different stakeholder, right? So, Manahat maybe touching on fintech passporting, but also like the focus and policy innovation in Rwanda. What are some of your takeaways that you found?
Now, that I've been blown away by their entire infrastructure and the ease of doing business and the efficiency and just honestly, convenience, efficiency, and willingness to work with any new partner. I'm in awe of how they built their system, but I think it's the first of many. And as what we say at AFTS, every company is a fintech company, right? I think as soon as these passport licensing programs are they're successful and they're expanded into other industries, I think it's just a matter of time of companies like mine, like edtechs and other types of companies, also kind of getting the piece of the pie or getting into similar programs. And I'm very excited for both Kenya and Rwanda and Ghana, and they're pioneers in this space. So I'm really excited to see with the AFCFTA initiatives also like to see it expand across the entire continent, and then of course other industries to catch up and adopt similar programs as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, even for the local startups, right? Like this opens up markets for them like instantly. So now Rwandan local talent, local startups have access to Ghana and now Kenya, right? So that's really, really, a big initiative. And maybe, we're going to see more partnerships come out of this, right? More partnerships, and then Rwandan companies also expanding, especially fintechs expanding into new markets. And I know for the ICT chamber, that's been a huge focus of market expansion. And now, at the policy level, at the highest level, they're able to do that. So really, really hats off to that. And even at IFF, there were also two announcements. Maybe Zach, you can touch on it. The VASP regulatory framework came out, and then also the FinTech Hub also launched. So maybe touch on that since you were there and you spoke on those things as well. Yeah.
Sure. Let me just add a little bit point on the fintech license passporting. You touched it. We were in Accra last year, And obviously, our focus has been the fintech license passporting that has been signed between Ghana and Rwanda. We've been advocating for ease of doing business for African startups for the last nearly 10 years. So we had a fireside chat with Bank of Ghana. So this fintech license passporting actually required a lot of trust between the two central banks and trusting their processes and their due diligence. So for a central bank, that is a huge step. And Rwanda has replicated here. And the reason we chose Rwanda was that we really wanted to test the actual policy. So Ghanaian businesses now license passporting to Rwanda. We want to see the actual income. Now, we are also actually test how is that Ghana, Rwanda, Kenya, and vice versa licenses really changing the ecosystem. That is what we'll be focusing in our summit in November. Coming back to your question, yes, there are several announcements, and I picked only 6 major announcements. So before IFF, actually, the Rwandan government set the tone of the entire fintech and innovation discussion by approving the draft VASP, that is a virtual asset regulatory oversight draft policy by the cabinet. So far in Africa, Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, and those 3 countries have legislation that oversize virtual assets, or as we commonly call crypto, but now stable coin is already at the back end of almost all fintech and cross-border payments. But there was no regulation, and when there is no regulation, there is also a lot of problems. So Rwanda has joined. So basically, stable coin, crypto, digital asset operators now have the legal basis to operate and to expand their businesses. So that is a huge development. And this week, there are several announcements. The first is the 2026 to 2030 financial inclusion roadmap launched at the forum by the central bank. So Rwanda has already achieved a huge milestone in financial inclusion, from 21% in 2008 now to 92% of its population has some sort of financial inclusion. But Rwanda is taking place. Financial inclusion doesn't mean that financial wealth. So they want to see not only that their citizens have access to bank accounts, but they have insurance, saving, investment, loans, and then at household levels, they have financial wealth and resiliency so that they can absorb shocks. So the 2026 to 2030 financial inclusion roadmap addresses that. And they're going to review that on a quarterly basis, and there will be a public review every 2 years. So that is a huge step. Secondly, as we touched, is the fintech license passporting between the 2 central banks in Kenya and Rwanda. When you add it to Ghana, you have 100 million consumers accessed by any fintech registered in Rwanda. That is a huge market and a huge accession point for any global and Pan-African fintech to register and headquarter their business in Rwanda. And third, the Ministry of ICT and Innovation has unveiled a new national digital platform. It's called Innovate Rwanda. So basically what it is the aim is to strengthen the country's innovation ecosystem, connecting the early stage and the fintech founders and businesses with investors. So basically it will be similar to what we've been doing through our Alpha Expo pitch competition and macro accelerator over the last 10 years. But Rwanda has taken it as a national project through its Innovate Rwanda program. So we expect several of Rwandan startups to be supported and then access capital through this initiative. And fourth, Rwanda also has announced a one-stop fintech center. So we already know the ease of doing business, as you've witnessed yourself when you are here in Rwanda. You can open a bank account, you can register a company, open a bank account literally in 1 hour in the same one shop. The similar system is replicated for fintech. That is a huge step for fintechs. Additionally, the National Bank has also partnered with the Afrexim Bank for what they call it ISDA, that is the International Swap and Derivatives Association, to replicate the legal basis for their derivative transactions. So the capital market is also getting that support from Afrexim. On the private sector, Bank of Kigali has launched their BK Open API. That is the first open banking for fintechs in Rwanda. So many announcements, so many partnerships. When you add all of this, Rwanda is sending a signal and a strong message. We're not only a capital of doing business, we're not only letting you register easily, but also we are helping you to springboard, use Rwanda to expand to Africa, and we're going to make your innovative and startup life much better than what it was.
That sounds good. So I think everybody talks about like ease of doing business, right? But like on the ground level, like what does that mean, right? We saw when we were there, when Manahat and I were there, we saw that it's not just registering the business, but the entire ecosystem is ready to actually accept more businesses. And at the end of the day, if you're a startup, you need a bank account, you need a business license, you need a phone number to actually operate. So Manahat, maybe from your experience, like how easy was it? And maybe you can touch on, some of your experiences while you were there.
Yeah, I can definitely endorse that. It's super easy to register your business in Kigali and get your checking account or your business account with less than an hour. Mikiyas and I we had back-to-back meetings with different stakeholders, and so we only had like an hour and a half of a gap. So we took that time to help me register my business, and it took less than when I tell you how crazily easy it was. I think I was flabbergasted. I think I was so shocked all day that I was just talking about how easy that was. But yeah, by the time I had somebody that helped me register the business, and I got my certificates and license that within a couple of hours, and that was it. And then
I think it was even shorter than that, wasn't it? Like within 30 minutes.
It was 20 minutes of filling out a form and submitting it, and then about an hour and a half later, I got my license. Like I found out I got my email and got all the licenses and documents that I needed. And then
a bank account,
a bank account, and I've seen how cumbersome registering a business is. Not just in Africa, but even outside of Africa. This was crazy. I was just like, wow, this is insane. But I think it goes back to what Zach was saying earlier about the fintech passport licensing, but also allowing making it easy for companies, especially African companies and local companies, to not just register to one country and operate in the other, but also the ease of registering and the ease of qualifying yourself to do business in a specific region is very important, especially for the startup ecosystem, because you're a startup, you're bootstrapping. And I think a lot of our conversations even with the ICT chamber was around, a lot of these startups are bootstrapping, and so like they need all the resources that they can get. And I think Rwanda does that really best. It levels out the playing field, because Zach said it again. He said, big conglomerates have the manpower and the resources to register in every different country, but startups don't, right? My team is a team of 5, and we're making it work, but we can't all be in the different regions at the same time, going through the different processes, and some of them take months, right? And I think the fact that we can do it in less than an hour it's a game changer. And I can definitely see a lot of companies and startups coming to Rwanda for this simple purpose, because it's a convenience, right? It's reducing the burdens on you as a business owner or even a startup founder. My experience, I'm endorsing that 1 hour mark to register a business and get all the different paperwork you need to operate.
You heard it here. She's endorsing the ecosystem, but you didn't want to take a stance on which coffee is better, but we'll leave that for a different time. But no, really firsthand experience. In about 30 minutes, she opened her business license. In less than another 45 minutes, right, she opened an account, and it's just amazing to actually watch it firsthand after meeting with the regulators and then putting it into practice. it was truly amazing. And maybe Zach, you had a point. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So ease of doing business goes beyond just registration and opening a bank account, and you have to file. There is a tax issue. There is a public service. So what you see in action here is actually a strong leadership and culture of public service. So you're a business and you have a complaint or a need from service, doors are open, no matter who in that public service is. And the public and the businesses have already accustomed to that open door policy. And any delay or any complaint they have is addressed one by one in a public hearing. I was fascinating when I heard that actually, public servants, including ministers, are actually called to, what you call a quarterly or yearly review with public and individual requests by individuals being asked on stage and then addressing it. So it tells you that each public office has a duty to ensure every request by any business is addressed, and they have that culture. So it's like all 360 view. It's not just the registration, but addressing and making sure that you have the streamlined process across the board. Additionally, the government also continues to add a lot of innovative layers for you to springboard across for your expansion. Is there a need for funding? Maybe Rwandan businesses are not getting the funding. Okay, let's do the Innovate Rwanda's program. Let's connect them with investors. Oh, maybe they are not at par at technical level with other startups. Let's start a technical support. So you have all the support. Timbuktu, which is a startup ecosystem for the UNDP, is headquartered in Rwanda because of that policy alignment. You have Smart Africa headquartered here. So Rwanda is not only doing ease of doing business easier for businesses, but you have surrounded the startup and the businesses with all the technical, the investing, the support, the accelerator, the incubating ecosystem across the board as well.
100%. And even touching on, initially the analogy that we kind of gave to Rwanda was it's like that garden with the right soil, right? Yeah. So registering a business, as you said, the innovation support, investment support, all these things are nutrients that make it more suitable for startups to flourish, right? And one thing I want to touch on too, on the ecosystem point, you have, players like co-working spaces like Norskin House, right? You have innovative hubs like ALX Rwanda that are also there. So it's I think all the support mechanisms, the startups, the investment support, innovation support, and also just the community of startups is really there. And that's definitely one thing that we hope to highlight in our Rwanda Kigali edition of the summit in November, and really have firsthand workshops in which you can actually touch base, see what the process is or do the process, right, at the summit of opening a business, registering, all that stuff, right? Talk to the local players, the Norskins, the ALXs, et cetera, to see how you fit into the equation, right? And I think it's really a nice ecosystem in which startups can flourish. So I think closing words, maybe in one sentence, big picture, I'm going to ask the question again. What is the signal that Rwanda is sending to startups in the world? Maybe we'll start with Manahat, and then Zach, you can close us off.
I think they're trying to attract all the businesses into Rwanda, which makes sense. And honestly, I would urge any business that's looking to do business in Africa to start in Africa, because there's the ease of doing business, but there's an entire infrastructure that's built there to support you. And so, come to Rwanda and join us in November.
Meet in Rwanda. Maybe Zach, closing thoughts?
Sure.
As you're in Rwanda.
Yes. We hear few references about Kigali in Rwanda, right? So this is a country of 1,000 hills. And this week we heard actually Afrexim using the word a city of horizons. And we heard the central bank governor mentioning a country of 14 million smiles. But with all the announcement made this week and the direction the Rwandan government and the ecosystem is taking place, the message is very clear. This is going to be a city of not only a proof of concept, but if there's any innovation idea that comes helping African startups and fintechs grow, it will come from Rwanda. So Rwanda is positioning itself out to be a center of innovation, a proof of concept, and an African springboard for African fintechs. And this is what we'll be discussing in November. And we're hoping the Rwandan government and then the various partners that we will be onboarding will make further announcement and partnerships that will be revealed at our summit in November. We also have 50% of the pitch competition startups coming from Rwanda. So we look forward to helping Rwandan startups connected with global investors. So our program is very much aligned with the Innovate Rwanda program. So we're very much excited to be here and really truly showcase Rwanda as an innovation springboard and proof of concept for the world, not only for Africa, but the globe.
100%. So come to Kigali, Rwanda at our November edition of the summit, and you can answer the question for yourself, about how good Rwandan coffee is. I personally love it. It has a very unique texture, palate. It's very nice. And I think
and African tea.
In Africa, the tea as well is really good. So you heard it here first.
You have a spice tea and African tea.
Spice tea and African tea. So come try it for yourself. But also in November, we're going to really, really have a lot of meaningful workshops in which you can actually walk away taking some action. So we want you to experience that and benefit from all the announcements that have come. So we'll see you in Rwanda. And before then, if you can join us in DC, we'll see you in DC as well. But this was good. A nice home team live. I think we will do more of these, but a lot of buzz coming out of Rwanda. So I'm glad we got to break it down. Awesome.
Thank you very much, Miki, for organizing this. And good to see you.
Bye. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Bye.